Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another custom tactic video where today we're going to be checking out the 4-4-2 flat formation. Now, the 4-4-2 flat formation in general is not one of my favorite formations. It's not one that I generally have a lot of success with, but today I've been trying out a different set of tactics and just trying to think about playing a 4-4-2 a little bit differently, thinking about how my current experience is playing the current FIFA gameplay, and just kind of like change my tactics and think outside the box a little bit and maybe just go for something a little bit more simplistic, because the 4-4-2 formation is a great formation to go back to if you are someone who's struggling. I always say, if you're someone who's just struggling to get results in FIFA, this formation, the 4-4-2 and the 4-2-3-1, are two of the best formations to get back into a winning streak and just get back in, because they're very simple and very easy to use. And this 4-4-2 is no different. It's very simple, very easy to use, and it is also very effective. Doesn't need a lot of like nows to be able to play this formation. You can play it in a lot of different ways. Today we're going to be playing it in a very simple way, but it is very effective because it's not hard to play with these tactics and instructions. Now, with that being said, these are the tactics that I use, and initially it looks very blank and very basic, but it was so effective. It just worked extremely well. Now, I went for pressure on heavy touch on the defensive style. I've said in many videos before, playing on a press in this formation is very effective. The 4-4-2 is one of the best formations that you can press in, because it is so difficult to play against, because you have the two strikers that obviously are on top of the centre backs. It's got width. There's plenty in the midfield that can squeeze up on like defensive midfielders. So when you're being pressed in this formation, you don't really have an out ball. You can't chip it out wide. You can't chip it anywhere. You kind of just generally have to smash it upfield. It is a very good formation pressing. Now, you can play and press on possession loss. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to keep this formation very rigid, and I didn't want it to kind of like force spaces to be open. Obviously, playing a press, it can be more effective when it works, but when it doesn't work, it obviously leaves a lot more space, and I didn't want to leave this formation open because you don't have a defensive midfielder. It can be very easily opened up, this formation, so it's really careful to not apply any tactics or instructions that do that. In terms of the depth, I went for around about 60. Again, this is another formation that you've got to be really careful with, like certain elements of it, because certain things that you can do can really change this formation, and it is definitely one of the easiest formations to open up if you get it wrong. There's other formations that you can apply certain tactics to, like you can go with the super high depth and it doesn't really affect it. This is one of those formations that just in game, the positioning just seems to really go a bit bogus. So 60 on the depth is really good. It allows us to still be able to pressure effectively, but not, leave too much space defensively. And now for something that I haven't actually done with any tactic video this year. I've actually left the build-up play and the chance creation on balance. Now, the reason why I've done this is because, again, this is one of those formations that if you go, for example, for long ball. Now, long ball is something that would work. Of all the build-up plays, this would be the most effective in this formation. Kind of the typical 4-4-2 long ball, balls over the top, chip through balls, smash through balls, whatever it may be, is very, very effective. But one thing I've happened a lot recently, and I was using it in the 4-3-3-4 variant, playing a long ball is great. Players are constantly running in behind, especially when you pair it with the instructions getting behind. Players are constantly running in behind, and it's great. But sometimes you don't want the players to run in behind. So to do that, you just play unbalanced, and your instructions will take over. So only your strikers running behind. One of the problems I had with long ball is sometimes the midfielders make runs in behind, or the cam makes runs in behind, and I don't want them to. So just having the strikers running behind with the getting behind tactic allows just certain players to run in behind and not the whole team. This is one of those formations that you can't afford the midfielders to get out of position, because otherwise your opponent just has free rein to get through your team. And the same with the chance creation. Direct passing is really, really effective, but in this formation it won't work, because when you get into the final third, everybody makes runs in behind. Left and right mid, centre mid, strikers, everyone makes runs in behind, and it just makes especially with this formation, it really exacerbates the problem in this formation. When players get out of position, there is so much space to be able to exploit, especially in that midfield area, because you only have two midfielders, and they're flat midfielders. They're not DMs, they're flat midfielders. So it's really important that you don't do that. So none of these things really work. Possession could work, but it just is a little bit too defensive in this formation again. So the balance works really well. So by doing this, the instructions are super, super important. Now moving across to the instructions, the two strikers to start with, I've got Quagliarella and Vlahovic. Now I've got both of them on stay central. Now I've got one of them on getting behind. So obviously our tactics aren't really helping us. They're on balance. So our instructions are way more important in this formation. So we've got one of the guys on getting behind and we've got one of the guys on false nine. The reason why is because one thing you'll find in this formation, it can be quite difficult to link the midfield to the attackers. There's generally quite a large space, 20-25 yards, and normally there is one, maybe two defensive midfielders in the way. So I've got my most kind of creative striker, in this case it's Quagliarella. Whoever your most creative striker is, have them on false nine so they don't drop in too deep. They just drop and play like a centre forward. So it's just a little bit easier to link between the lines, to link between the midfield and the strikers. So Milinkovic-Savic, instead of him having to play a through ball through to Quagliarella because he's running in behind, it might be a 25-30 yard pass. He just has to play a little 5-10 yard ball into Quagliarella, and then he can play the pass a 10-15 yard through ball into Vlahovic, and then it's much easier to link the play up done this way. I've also got both of the two strikers want to be on stay forward just to make that press a little bit more effective. So your strikers are on top of the centre backs. Also means your opponent can't just pass it around in defence because your strikers are going to be on top of them all the time. So it just makes it a little bit more effective in that way. Your two central midfielders, generally you want box-to-box midfielders. You can go for probably more defensive midfielders in this area because you do need players that obviously are going to be getting in position. You need players that are quite strong and physical, can make the tackles, but you need players that can also get around the pitch. Generally, you don't want sort of heavy players. Savic wasn't very good. Koke was very, very good when I was using him. Savic wasn't great. I tended to bring on McKennie and someone like that. So someone that can really get around the pitch quite well because they have a lot of ground to cover in this midfield. They're getting out wide to cover. They're getting forwards. They're getting back defensively. They do a lot of sprinting. So you need guys that have got really good stamina, decent pace, quite agile in that midfield. Doesn't matter if they're box-to-box or defensive midfielders, either will do. The only thing that we're changing in this is we're just having them on stay on edge of the box. You don't want these guys getting anywhere near the box or going anywhere inside the box. You just need them on the edge of the box. Just kind of recycle the ball if it comes out and just be able to stop any counter-attacks that come. In terms of the wide players, we've got Pedro and Insigne. And Insigne was very, very good in this formation. I think he really suits playing this type of role rather than up front as like a striker or a cam or a winger. Now, we've got them on free roam. This is just so that there's a little bit more freedom just to get the left and right mids involved in their play a little bit more because I don't want the midfielders getting forward and scoring and assisting. They're kind of just there to patrol. That means the left and right mids, we need to find a way of getting them more in the game. Now, free roam does that very, very well. It means they drift around when they get in the final third. So they kind of come off that left-hand side. And sometimes they'll find themselves a little bit higher, a little bit more inside the pitch, just a little bit more involved in the game. Of course, we want them on getting behind as well. Obviously, our tactics aren't doing anything for us, so our instructions are critical. And we also need them on get in the box because we need a couple more bodies in the box to help Vlahovic and Quagliarella because we don't really have anyone else getting forward. So really that kind of umbrella, you know, of Insigne, Quagliarella, Vlahovic and Pedro, they do a lot of the attacking. And the two mids do a lot of the patrolling. And of course, moving into the back four, of course, all of these guys you want on stay back while attacking. You really can't afford, especially in this formation more than any others, you can't afford anybody to get out of position. This formation is really critical to have the right players in your team. You need players that can play a specific role because this is such an easy formation. If one thing goes wrong in this formation, it can be very, very easy to play against. But with that being said, I had tremendous success with this 4-4-2 setup. It was so good. It was something very, very different that I haven't played for a long time in this way. Just quite basic and quite simple. But it was very, very effective against the majority of people I played against. So I recommend definitely trying this out if you like the 4-4-2. Give it a try and let me know how it worked for you in the comments because it worked super, super well for me. So it'd be interesting to hear your guys' feedback. If you do enjoy the content, make sure you do drop a thumbs up and do make sure you subscribe as well if you are new to the channel. But that is all for today, guys. Have an awesome day.